Hello, guys. Welcome back to another episode of The Howl. Today, my guest is a very talented music composer from Poland. Julia, welcome to the show.
Hi.
So, tell me more about yourself and how is Poland?
How is Poland?
Yes.
Not very well. No, of course I'm joking. Poland is a very interesting country. We've been established, in 10th century, basically.
Yeah.
And ever since then, it's been a country that, kept on growing. There was a lot of wars inside. Then, once we reached a peaking point, then we became a very valuable asset. That led to, divisions. Asset in Europe, as a country. Like we were in the middle of the silk trade and a whole bunch of, it was a very rich country for a very, very long time. That caused a lot of interest from, neighboring countries. And so, they were attacking us quite a while. So Poland has a very, very difficult history, including, Second World War and Hitler. And so it's really interesting, just taking a look at Europe from Polish perspective. Now, today the country is free, yay, and Polish people are wonderful. I really, they're very honest, very, very kind souls, and a lot of them, unfortunately, emigrated Poland during all those
Immigrated
turnovers.
away.
Yeah, and I'm one of those people. I emigrated not because of the political situation, but I immigrated to study music.
Study music, all right. Mm-hmm. So, when you were in Poland, what were you studying before music? Like before you came to America?
Well, I was always a musician. I started as a classical piano player when I was about 6 years old. And
6 years old?
Yeah.
Did you just learn it, or were you getting trained by someone?
Oh yeah, I was taking lessons. It came as a surprise to me and my mom, because it was interesting. What she would do, she would play on a piano, do her little noodles, and I would come to her and fix her mistakes. I didn't know what the heck I was talking about, but I could hear that she would here and then she would miss a note. So she was like, well, if you can't hear that, maybe you have some musical talent. And what she did is she signed me up for first piano lessons.
Right.
And that's kind of what started my musical journey. Later on, when I was a teenager, I started discovering that, this music is kind of like an outlet. It's a separate language. So it became a form of, just expressing myself without having to use words. And I wasn't always that good with words. Music became for me like the second way of expression.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like a lot of people like don't think about music that way, but like in high school, like you had like, your little edgy days, listen to punk music. It's because like you're young, you have a lot of these like really strong emotions. And then when you hear music like that, like maybe punk, maybe metal, maybe whatever, it speaks to you in volumes that you could never like hope to speak at that age, or maybe a lot of people can't express those emotions, properly. So it's fun how we see music like that. So that goes to my next question. Like, you study music in Poland. What would you say are the interesting parts for your country? Like, if I were to go to Poland, what would you say? Like, hey, Nick, you gotta try.
So there's a few travel-wise places that I would definitely recommend. There's a few cities that you should probably put on your list. Those cities are Gdańsk, Krakow, Warsaw, and Zakopane.
All right.
Those are like the main, they've...
capitals or...
No, the capital is Warsaw. What I'm trying to say is, if you want to, because there's a lot of cities that have a lot of very interesting things in it, but these are like the most, if you would put like 4 different
it's kind of like
diverse
Santa Monica,
regions.
LA, or...
it's more like, LA, Dallas, Washington, New York, right?
All right.
Yeah, so you get like all those different vibes from different city. And yeah, so Zakopane is in the middle of beautiful mountains. We have this little piece of mountains called Tatry, and we were just talking earlier with Juan, where like basically what I was trying to explain to him is there's a different dialect that comes from that place. It's Polish language, but it's basically it almost, the difference is like between British English and English.
Oh, okay.
So we really love their culture. It's a very touristy type of area. We have tourists coming from all over the world to basically see that little piece of the culture. So that's really interesting. Then, Krakow is, of course, where, the kings resided for several, centuries. There was a, battle between Warsaw and Krakow, who's the capital.
So when was this? Was this like in the medieval times?
Yeah.
So are there a lot of castles? Because I know Scotland has a lot of castles. England has some castles.
There's a lot of castles in Poland. Yes. So if you wanna, if you're like into princesses, like if you want to see like the word kings, monarchies and all this kind of stuff, definitely a good place to go is Poland. And you can not just the castle where they were residing. They had like a summer castle, they had a winter castle, they had like
really?
Oh yeah. Once you were a king, you could do pretty much anything you wanted. Yeah.
Kings were living
that was really
the life.
Interesting. Yeah.
So those are interesting places. Like definitely, I didn't think I would like England as much as I did when I went, but the openness was something that appealed to me. So maybe down the road, I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna go to Poland. Maybe I'm gonna enjoy Poland.
You totally should. You're always welcome.
So another question, like straight from Poland, like, how old were you?
When I came here, I was 18.
18. So before you were 18, before you left for America, what were your hobbies, and how does it compare to your hobbies arriving in America? Like, were you a little bit culture shocked, or were you like, you were still the same and you were still acting the same or whatnot? So I just wanted to pick your brain with that.
Really interesting question. I was a wild child.
All right.
So I was always looking for trouble. Teachers loved me and hated me. They couldn't say to me because I always had straight A's.
Yeah.
But then I was like a very difficult kid,
to
kind of
manage,
keep contained. Yeah. So, and I always had too much energy. I didn't know what to do with it. So I would do extreme sports. I would be very competitive. I love competitive sports. I would compete with whoever I could, whenever I could. So it was very, I had a pretty intense childhood. I can't believe my parents survived.
All right. So it sounds like you were very musically gifted, right? How many instruments can you play? And when did you learn to play each instrument?
Wow. So I'm definitely an ADD when it comes to doing anything creative. So I started with piano. Soon after I picked up guitar on top of it. Soon after I picked up, church organs.
So it just clicks with you. Music
right after I picked up flute. Then from flute, I moved to saxophone. When I was playing saxophone, I didn't just play alto saxophone. I wanted to play tenor saxophone.
Wow.
Then I picked up bass. Then I was like, I was all over the place. I've learned a lot of instruments over a pretty short period of time. So, beside piano, which basically is my main instrument, I wouldn't qualify myself as like a master in those instruments by any means. But it's
enough understanding. Like, can you like, if a song plays, can you play the song on the instrument? Or
oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, this piece of it actually is probably what makes me a good composer because I understand so many different instruments.
Yeah.
Therefore, I'm capable of writing for pretty large ensembles, and I understand that you can't write the same things for the same instruments. I understand the inner working of the instruments, and therefore it's almost like every single instrument has a different language. So you have to respect that language, and you have to learn the language if you really want to be good in writing for those instruments.
That's good.
And that sometimes can take lifetimes.
You make it. Yeah. I was gonna say, you make it sound so easy. Like, I know. 4 months ago, I picked up a guitar. I started learning the guitar.
Good for you. That's awesome.
I can play like this one intro of the song. I learned it for like 3 hours, and it's just like me holding notes and everything. So no, I'm not musically talented at all. So
well, you never know that. Don't say
yet. I tried.
Don't say nothing yet.
I was super ADD before back in school, and I just like I loved playing football. So what happened was, I was like, hey, you know what? I want to pick up the guitar. And my mom paid for lessons when I was small, and I was just so ADD, I couldn't like sit down. And they're like, no, you have to do it like 5 times. And I'm like, no, I just want to run outside. So maybe now it comes to me easier, way easier. Like I did so much progress compared to before. Like it's not a lot. Like it's not you progress, you know. So
well, you don't know what was me like progress.
True.
No, learning is a long process, like for everything, right? So you don't just pick up something and start, right? You have to spend time. Repetition is a huge thing, you know. I'm finding out the more you repeat, the more you get into the groove of repeating something. That's what, you know, makes learning successful.
True. Yeah, that's that's a nice way to look at it actually. So we're here. We come to America. You're this energetic Polish girl. Fast forward to you working. How did you transfer what you knew in music in Poland, and how did you market yourself here? Like, who are the people you connected with? You know, so I just wanted to know.
That's a very, very good question, and not too many people really actually ask this question, and I feel like the answer is pretty important. You know, because you know, young creators.
For a foreigner, you come here.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So I, first of all, I have this odd tendency that came from me being younger. Should we pause? Okay, go. So I have this tendency that came from me being younger, and I always had it. I liked hanging out with older people, whether it was, you know, adults or whether it was just older kids. It always inspired me because I sort of saw them as like
level.
They were on a better level. I wanted to imitate what they're doing. Exactly. So, and that never, you know, stopped in my lifetime. I always looked up to older people because I feel like they have so much more experience and I can learn so much from them. So I, you know, continued that all the way through college. You know, I would always hang out with older crowds, and because of that, they warned me about a lot of things that, you know, maybe my peers weren't warned so early about. Yeah. And I feel like I got a lot of heads up because of that very trait. So yeah, in college, I moved through college very quickly. You know, I transferred also from one college to another. Normally, if you ask me whether you should go to college for music or whether you shouldn't,
depends.
If you can learn all this stuff on your own, you probably don't need to go to college. You know, music is pretty, you know, intuitive. Intuitive. So if you just are willing to spend time on your own, you don't need to go to college. For me, going to college was a huge thing because it allowed me to come to America. And also it allowed me to study the language, study the understanding of the music. I mean, to study the culture, I was so in love with jazz. The reason why I came to America was jazz. And, you know,
did you go to that gumbo? Where's... My brain's not working. St. Louis? Louisiana. Did you visit Louisiana?
Those are like blues musicians more, like Georgia, Louisiana, New Orleans, right?
New Orleans.
Yeah, New Orleans. That's like where all this stuff started, right? But what I'm saying is more general. I feel like jazz was developed in America. So to understand jazz, you have to understand the culture.
Go to the heart.
Yeah, it's almost like you can't learn how to play or dance salsa if you're not gonna go to Cali and experience, right? So I feel like, you know, I was so driven to learn every little bit and piece of jazz that I wanted to like just swallow the culture and
so tell me your secret.
Tell
me your secret with how, because it feels to me like you were super passionate about music before, and how did you keep the fire in you even across how many miles and how many years? Like, how did you
you know what, by progressing, but always going to the next step. I feel like, you know, I'm probably one of those people that I don't like to do one thing. I don't like to be stagnant. I don't like to stay in one place for a long time. I get bored. Yeah. So to keep myself occupied, I just kept on going to the next level. And like, you know, when I was in college, I realized that just performing, you know, isn't enough for me. I wanted to be a writer, you know. Yeah. I started writing very early, but it was in college that I made the realization that I'm not going to be satisfied if I just perform. Yeah. I needed to write for other people. I needed to like explore, you know, all of the other aspects of music. And that's really what started my career as a composer.
That's great. That's great. With everything going on in your life right now, are you excited about something in the future? Like, is there something you're super excited about that you're working on or collaborating with someone with?
There's a lot of things that I'm very, very excited about. I mean, this year was a huge year for me.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's been really, thank you. It's really awesome. I started an all-female team, so I have
Nice.
6 wonderful composers working with me right now. With that team, me, myself, and with the team, we together did 19 projects this year,
Nice.
different projects. It's pretty crazy. So it's been a very, very busy year for me.
So tell me about this team. What team is this? What projects do you guys work on?
So it's a film scoring team. Basically, we do a lot of film and television. We've done 2 TV shows this year. We've done 6 feature films. I, on top of that, just by myself, did another 3. So it's been just it's been, and I love working with those girls because they're not just
the best, yeah.
Oh yeah, they're not just wonderful musicians, very, very extremely talented composers, but they're also just so pleasant to be around.
Yeah.
They're all into the team, so they're great team players. They support each other. They support me. They they pick up this, like, they find a way how to be helpful, which is an amazing gift.
Yes.
For and I feel like and they all have a lot to say, and we always democratically pretty much choose what is the best for the team. So I feel like it's just a wonderful environment to work in.
That's great. That's great. With this, you working with people right now, and you know what's happening with your team. Are you familiar with the smaller side of musicians now happening around the world, actually? Like small-time producers making their own lo-fi music, making their own like garage sounds on SoundCloud or GarageBand. Like, are you familiar with artists like that?
If somebody brings me an artist to my attention, then yes. There's so much music out there to listen to.
Too much.
Yeah, it's too much, yes. So, and unfortunately for young artists, the marketing dollar is the most powerful weapon in this industry, right now. I mean, even in the outlets that 10 years ago were pretty much a free-for-all outlets, and they launched careers of multiple phenomenal musicians. Nowadays, even though those so-called free outlets are not really free anymore, because you're always going to be outbid by somebody who can pay more, so by somebody who has a better marketing strategy, by somebody, so it's really interesting. The internet, it's almost like it peaked for independent creators, and now it's going down the drain. I really wish, I like looking at different platforms coming up right now. There's almost every single year there's a different platform, and those people who don't have a chance to stand against the big bucks anymore on the big platforms can always transition to the smaller platforms. So, if you are an independent creator, I definitely, advise you researching what is that new hot thing that you can kind of capitalize on. Yeah. So that would be like my strategy if I wanted to really, go into the promoting of my own music and my own art. But going back to your questions, so I really, when somebody has a lot of talent and when they show up on the scene, I love supporting those artists. And, at this point I have enough power that I can always invite them to collaborate with me, right?
There you go.
And I have done that in the past. And I hate dealing with those people's agents and managers. They usually, when they're starting out, they have like the worst managers, the worst agents, because none of those people know what they're doing, But it's a work in progress. So I personally try to, pick those people from the arena and try to get them involved in what I'm doing as well.
Yeah. See, in America, there's or anywhere, there's a point in life where you can say you've made it. Like, it's not like I'm a billionaire. You're like, you know what, I'm doing what I like. I'm making enough money. Life is good. Would you say that you've reached that point?
I don't think I'll ever say I've reached that point.
So you're always striving, like you're always breaking barriers.
I'm always going for the next big thing, and I don't think I'm one of those people oh, I can't wait until I retire. I never want to retire.
No, but not about
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. But not about retiring, but like for example, like when you're a struggling artist and you're like struggling so hard on your art, you know, and then the pressure off your shoulders is lifted. Like that's the moment I'm talking about. Like just the moment you're financially capable of supporting yourself or your wife or your kids or whatever with the passion you love. Would you say that you're at that point? Like,
so let me answer this question a little differently. I feel like there is in independent business and in probably in creators, young independent starving artists, there is an upward wave that goes up and down. So you would be in that point for a moment, then you go down again, then you go climb to the next step, then you go. So I feel like my life wasn't necessarily like, you know, there was struggling. Oh, and I'm not struggling anymore. It was always a wave.
Always a fight.
So I've been very comfortable at some points. Then it would be a year of really like bad things happening, you know, financial problems or whatever. Then it would climb back up. It was really I can't personally say that there is like that one little spot where you're like, oh, I'm not a starving artist anymore. I'm like, and you can always, and it's interesting because, you know, who's really good in this? The Rock, what's his name?
Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Yeah. Dwayne Johnson. He had a phenomenal speech about that, where he's saying, you know, I've been there and I fell all the way, you know, back down. But what never let me give up is the fact that I always feel like I'm with my back to the wall.
Yeah.
That's what he feels like, and he says, stay in that mentality forever, because that's what's going to make you achieve the best out of yourself, you know, pretty much forever. So it was, I mean, I find him very, very inspiring.
Yeah, there are a lot of, he's actually surprisingly really inspirational, actually. We were talking about these artists up and coming and how the market is oversaturated with all these musicians. And it's stressful. Like if you're starting out as a musician, like it's super stressful now, especially in LA, especially in acting, whatever.
Yeah.
Everything here in LA is crowded in the entertainment field. What advice would you give someone who's like struggling, who's doubting himself? Like maybe someone who's working hard on his music, working hard on his craft, and he just can't seem to get in. What would be your advice to that person or people?
I have a few. First of all, don't ever compare yourself to anybody else. I mean, yeah, if this is your system and it works for you, maybe do. But I feel like, you know, the success is so, it's such a weird thing. People think, okay, it's success, and then, you know, it's like this point that everybody sees of like no success, then a lot of success. It's never like that. Everything is just black and white. So what I would say, first of all, never give up. Because there are artists who got very, you know, successful and very established when they were 3 years old. There are artists who got successful in their teens. They were successful artists in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s.
The Backstreet Boys.
There's absolutely no rhyme and reason when are you going to be successful. It's a lot of luck has to do with it, and persistence, and not just blindly doing things that don't make sense, having a little bit of a structure to what you're doing and a little bit of a plan. And another thing is, you know, if you can invest in some, I'm missing a word for it, but it's a really, really good one, so it's worth waiting for it. Hold on.
We'll wait.
Common sense.
Common sense. There you go.
Common sense, and it's probably one of the things that I see among successful people. They all sort of have common sense. Now, another thing that, you know, a lot of successful people have, they are extraordinary. But it's funny because ordinary people, they are also extraordinary. They just have to stop trying to be shy and open up and allow themselves to be extraordinary. And I feel like a lot of starting artists, they try to be like somebody else. It doesn't work that way. I mean, yeah, in marketing you can use, you know, different names to market something, but you still have to have something special on your own.
If you do that, you're just gonna sound like everyone else. So you gotta find that little thing that do you know the band Imagine Dragons?
Yeah.
when they won the what award did they win? Their first album? They won this really big award. And I was like, oh my God, this is the end of them. Because you know how musicians get big and they start selling out. But their music like remained roughly the same, you know, like pretty much the same. And then people were starting to say like, oh, they sound like everybody else. But actually everyone was, or a lot of people.
Sounds like them, yes.
Everyone else was trying to copy them. And I'm like, you know what, I can...
Yep.
Where the difference is between Maroon 5 and Imagine Dragons, you know, like Maroon 5 went like total mainstream.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you touched on something very interesting. I feel like, you know, there's a lot of musicians, like to create a sustainable career, you also have to have that mentality of, you know, having your back to the wall all the time and not letting the, you know, quick success or any success, it doesn't have to be quick, any success just blow you off your beaten path. You have to just keep on going. And it's interesting because the longest careers in this industry, the most lasting success is built on just persistence and being, not letting anybody rattle you in any way, just being persistently in, you know, marching your beaten path.
So we were talking a lot about musicians. Do you have any favorite musician right now that you listen to, and what genre?
Very good question. I have a favorite musician in each genre, and they change all the time too.
I feel that, yeah.
So
let's hear it.
There's, oh goodness, just to name it. Okay, so let's start with jazz. I'm a, you know, pianist, so I love, you know, artists like Thelonious Monk, who started me out, Chick Corea, McCoy Tyner, that I stole a lot from, you know, Herbie Hancock. Then, you know, from vocal, I love jazz vocalists, Nina Simone, Sarah Vaughan was a huge influence on me and her music. You know, then, you know, moving on to like gospel music. I love gospel artists.
How do you feel about that new Kanye album? Have you heard it?
I was very intrigued. I don't know. He didn't do anything all that special.
There were like maybe 2 songs that I liked.
Yeah, no, I was really interested in musical choices on this album. It was definitely gospel influenced. I was wondering why he would do such an album. So I have very like, oh, this is really interesting type of reaction to it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot to that. Like I don't know what's going on. Like I love Ye. I love Kanye, you know? But right now I think I saw him tweet about like, God is good, God gave me this tax refund, and I'm like, oh, is this why he's happy? Like God gave him $10 million and he's like happy. So that's what it looks like to me.
Yeah.
Like when I follow his Twitter, like I kind of like unfollowed him because he's like all over the place right now. But I still love him, but I don't think it's his greatest work for gospel. Like I like gospel.
Yeah.
But that one it was a miss for me.
Well, there are like, I mean, in gospel music, gospel music was progressing along, you know, classical music, and it's pop music, just as much as, you know, pop music changed over years. Gospel music changed over years too, right? It's just from like those early, you know, spirituals,
clapping,
to, you know, organized choirs, then to like real
orchestras and stuff.
Yeah, just they've done every possible thing, you know. I mean, the big time for gospel music was, you know, 60s, 70s, right? And then, you know, and then they became very, very complex. I mean, to this day, gospel music is probably one of the richest and most intriguing music, you know, ever. You know, it has so many different, you know, channels and so many different. Yeah, I mean, contemporary gospel music, it sounds like R&B pop music.
It's very rock gospel music.
Oh yeah, it's really, really intriguing, you know. But I mean, I also love classical music. I listen to classical music all the time. You know, usually the big names and the you know, like I love Camille Saint-Saëns, I love Mozart, you know, I love Rachmaninoff, Penderecki, you know. I love all this stuff, and of course film music, you know. John Williams was my huge idol. I love Hans Zimmer's production, you know. From the newer composers, I really like Tony Hockenborg, who I have a pleasure to work with, and A.R. Rahman, who's amazing, another amazing musician that I have a pleasure to work with. I'm going to be seeing him in 2 weeks now.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's just so amazing, and all of those new coming up, names and artists. I feel like those are the people who are going to be creating the new face of film scoring. So it's extremely interesting, and I see music as something that's very vibrant and something that just
always
fluid,
changing.
Always changing. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. So, if you weren't a composer, what profession do you see yourself in? Like, if you took it out and then you were to choose one profession.
I think I would be a cosmologist, and don't confuse this with cosmetologist.
All right.
Or with astronomer.
Yes.
Those are both different professions. Cosmologist is probably what Einstein was, Stephen Hawking, and all the other things. I had a huge dilemma when I was graduating from high school, whether I should go into music or whether I should go into physics. And and I would probably end up studying theoretical physics if I didn't say to myself, you can always study that, or you can study that in the background. I think music is something that you need to do when you're young, and that's true. You kind of have to do music while you're young.
Because your brain, it's...
Yeah, but I still, I study physics on my own at home. Like you wouldn't say this about me, but I'm like such a huge nerd. My best friends are the friends that I can, throw in an equation at. And they're like, oh, no, that's wrong, So it's pretty interesting,
That wouldn't be my best friend. Like if they throw equations at me every time, I'm like, why do we hang out? Like, why are we friends, dude? Get away from here. So what would you say is the most challenging, interesting part of composing a movie for a film? Like, let's say we're in LA, you get a lot of people having their student films or films, and they're like, hey, can you compose it for me? Like, what would you say is the most challenging part in that whole process, from meeting the person, from understanding what he needs, to delivering him the final product?
I'll tell this to everybody: the money.
Like, I want to do everything. How much?
Yeah, have you guys seen those memes online? It's like, clients' expectations, clients' budget.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yes.
It's so
and
funny.
It's just like totally...
Yeah. And I am a master myself of doing things on low budget. But really, if you really want to have a great product, you need to figure out how to pay for it. And, with young filmmakers, I've seen, they're amazing. They're very understanding. They're great spirits. They don't really expect magic. But I also feel like, there's so many great films over there that, if they could just allocate additional budget for music, if there was like an organization that would give filmmakers budget for music, we could do so much phenomenal things. Because I feel like, when you go to studios where, you finally have those big budgets and you can work with those big budgets.
Or...
That's where you... Hold on, let me finish. That's where you get constraints from the studios. Yes. This is what you can do, this is what you can't do. With young filmmakers, that's what you can... This is where you can do pretty much a lot, because they are open. They want to see new things. They want to experiment. They want to go out of the, of the box. So I feel like, we shouldn't be putting millions of dollars into the next blockbuster. We should be putting millions of dollars into the next underground, cheap shot with one camera, phenomenal film. That's where we should be allocating that budget.
What I was gonna say was, like being like this small production company, it's expensive to film in LA. Like to film in front of my house, I would need to pay the city like what, $120 to film on my sidewalk. And that's just crazy. So like all the budget of these people like go into like fees, and then you have all these stuff, and it's not easy. It's not easy to get some things because everyone's trying to book it, and then you're like, oh, I have 3 days to film this. Where do I go? And you're like, I guess I need to go to my second spot. But it's getting better. Like there's an app where you rent houses. I forgot what it's called. It's like the Uber of renting houses, basically. And then people do that and they film there. So I'm like, wow, that's actually really smart. It's cheaper than like paying the city for permission to film, and
Yeah. No, I mean, I really feel bad for all the young filmmakers, because you guys have it the toughest, Like it's easy to learn with money, you know. It's not easy to have to figure out everything, you know, and make it good. It's so difficult. So
and it's something like I see film as something like music per se. Like someone can learn. I worked with a lot of film students who are like super by the book, and that's all they could do, like super by the book. But there's no passion, there's no nothing, and it's just like I'm doing it structured. It's gotta be nice, right? No, you gotta add like little panache. You gotta add like your little soul in there and everything. So I feel like filmmakers also have that thing where, oh, maybe I can like spend like $100,000 to learn film, or maybe I could like tag along with this one person and then learn from there. Like there's so many ways that you can get into film, and people don't see that a lot actually. And talking about our projects, what projects have you worked on before? Like what kind of like what's the scale? Like it goes from like maybe student films or family friends films to
Tonight Show with Jay Leno, Empire, Book of Life, just name it. I mean, you know, I even performed and play piano on the Arsenio Hall show. So I've done like, I've done everything from like, you know, a $0 short film to like, you know, some of the biggest titles in Hollywood. It's pretty crazy. And, you know, I was fortunate to do this. You know, I can't, you know, claim all the fame, you know, for this, you know, it wasn't just me. I had a lot of people helping me out.
It's a village,
you know. Yeah, no, I had a lot of people who just basically took an interest in my talent and just helped me to that next level. And I'm so grateful for having all those wonderful mentors all over the years. And, you know, I feel like I was really lucky to, you know, just be in the right place and the right time and find the right people too. So,
it's great working with people like with the same mindset as you. Like you just keep going, and Okay, for this next part, I'm gonna make it a little bit more interactive. I'm gonna have three lives to guess a genre you don't listen to. So I'm gonna name a genre, and if you listen to it, you're gonna say, "I listened to that," and I'm gonna lose one life. So the goal is for me to successfully guess 3 genres that you don't listen to.
Okay, define listen to, because you can listen to one song and really like it, listen to it over and over, but not listen.
Like something you can jam to, like let's say.
So something that I like a lot of music from that genre and I listen to it a lot, or because I have songs from just one genre that I absolutely am obsessed with, but I haven't heard anything else from that genre.
All right. So it's a little bit more complicated than I thought.
Right?
So let's give it a go.
You're gonna lose a lot of lives if we're gonna go that way.
I win a lot. So we have 3 lives, okay? So I'm gonna say. So the goal for me is to guess genres that you don't listen to. So I'm gonna judge you right now, okay? So I have your permission to judge you.
Okay, permission to judge me.
We're gonna start with. What's a good genre? Dubstep. You know, all those kids listening to those bangers right now?
Yeah.
No?
It's probably one of those things where I listen to a couple of songs, but I don't really listen to the whole.
Right. So I'm not gonna win. I already know I'm not gonna win. You have like so much music knowlage, so that was
dubstep, if you think about it, has great like production quality.
The beats are actually like.
Yeah, so I mean, and those people like they have very limited musical language to operate in, so they have to make go their own. Yeah, so they have to go for very unique solutions. So if you think about it, like where there is not enough of like chords, they go for sounds. When there's not enough rhythms, they go for something else. So it's very interesting how like the limited genres, they actually have a lot of other forms of creativity that you can take and steal from them.
Right, so we've decided that I can't win. I can't win that game.
Is there
a genre here? We'll change the question. So I save face here. Is there a genre that people look at you, or people that have been with you, like friends, family? Is there a genre that if you told them you listened to it, would they be like, what? Would they be like,
I get that reaction a lot when I start rapping.
Rapping.
Hardcore rap.
See, I would have lost.
DMX,
I would have lost this game.
or Cardi B, or like people like that. Well, yeah. No, my American friends, they go crazy. Particularly, particularly with things like DMX or like Exhibit. I'm going very old school here. Yeah, no, they go like, okay.
NWA.
Okay, I don't know you anymore.
Yeah, so that was.
Oh yeah.
I would have lost. Like I would have.
Yeah.
I already know. So that was a safe bet. So me, it is more like. I feel like I listen to so much music. Like I grew up on 80s music mostly. So my favorite genre would be like 80s synth.
Cool. Okay.
Like there's something about it that when I hear it, I'm just like I get put in a good mood instantly. Like
interesting.
Always, you'll always be Electric Dreams. Mm-hmm. That we'll always be together.
Yeah.
Together.
That genre leaked into film scoring with John Carpenter and like what he was doing. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Halloween score and other things like that. Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
And those slasher films, Friday the 13th. Yeah.
I actually have a question. Is Shaft, is that from the 80s?
Shaft,
that film?
I think, is that 80s?
Is that 80s?
It was an old movie that was brought back to life with who was Samuel L. Jackson?
Yeah. But was that thing done in the 80s? The initial one, the Shaft?
I'm not sure. I didn't watch Shaft, but I know about it. Like I saw it on commercials. I'm like, yo, that's Shaft. Cool.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, Julia. So you have this camera right here.
Okay.
Let the people know. Shameless plug. Be as shameless as you want.
Hey, I'm shameless. My name is Julia Zuzanna Sokolowska. Don't try to do that at home, kids. So you can follow me everywhere, pretty much. I'm available on all forms of social media. The biggest one for me is Facebook. So, it's usually Julia Zuzanna Music. It's like Susanna, but with Z's. Music. And if you type that, my page is going to pop out on Facebook. I post a lot on my page, probably even more than I post on my private page. I post a lot on Instagram. I try to post a lot on Twitter. Nobody cares about me on Twitter. That means nobody cares what I have to say.
That's fair.
Maybe, hopefully not. I don't know. I'm definitely on YouTube. I try to post something every month or every couple of months on YouTube. So, I try to put out, content about what I'm doing, what's going on in my life, about my projects, the ones that I can talk about. So definitely, stay in tune, stay in touch, and, there's going to be a lot of fun stuff coming up.
So for all you film people starting out who need a composer here in LA, she already said she didn't like cheap people, so be careful.
No.
When you offer.
Some of the best scores, let me just fix this for you.
All right.
Some of the best scores that we did for free. So, just putting it out there.
Market's open, guys. So, very nice talking to you. It was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for coming
And likewise, thank you so much for having me.
All right, that was great, guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again.
Bye.